Hey guys, welcome to today's episode of Talking Decon. I am Laura Spalding, CEO of Spalding Decon, and today I am honored to talk to Kyla Kelly. And today we're going to be talking about the affordable housing crisis that's going on all around America and how it's affecting educated people that are just trying to have really good affordable housing, what they're working for and they went to school for. How are you, Kyla?
I'm doing good. Can't complain. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for being with us today. So why don't you tell us a little bit kind of about you, your name, your age, a little bit about yourself?
All right, sure. I'm Kyla Kelly. I'm 28 years old. I was born and raised in Florida, um, and I well, live in St. Pete. I don't know if I would consider myself a St. Pete resident anymore, considering I no longer have a legal address that I live at. Um, I am what you would consider the working class homeless.
Wow, wow. Right.
Might not sound like it, but I'm kind of trying to shake up people's perception of what the new homeless looks like because rent is insane here.
Yeah, so let's dive into that a little bit, Kyla. How did you grow up? Were you growing up in middle class and did you go to college? Like, what was your upbringing like?
Sure, sure. My upbringing was a little odd. So I was raised by a single mother. I was an only child until about age 13. Um, my mom did not have a lot of money, but my grandparents did have a little bit of money. My grandmother was a stay-at-home mom. My grandfather was in the Air Force, worked for Lockheed Martin. Um, they had three kids, so they would help my mom out a little bit. But I remember my mom did have food stamps for a portion of the time that I was living with her. Um, kind of not the nicest area. She would forge our address so that I could go to a better public school. And I remember being oftentimes the poor kid pretending to be one of the rich kids. So I would spend the night at people's mansions in Winter Park, and their moms had tanning beds in their house. Meanwhile, I lived over in Castleberry, in a not so nice area. So it's kind of not unfamiliar that I find myself in this territory once again. Um, I did classical ballet my whole life. My mother was very adamant about having me in some type of after school activity that took over the majority of my free time. I went to a ballet conservatory, private university in upstate Pennsylvania. Once again, the poor kid at the fancy university. I was at university while my mom was losing her home. So I just have straddled both worlds. I don't know if I'm considered middle class. But yeah, I've always just lived that weird dichotomy of I am the poor person, always very close within the wealthy circle.
Yeah, I've always wondered, people use the term middle class so fluidly that it's really difficult for me to figure out, is everyone middle class except for the top 1% and the lowest 10%? Like that just leaves 90, 89% of the population that's just literally floating in that middle class arena. It's really hard to describe what middle class is anymore in 2022.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people would say there is no middle class anymore. Me and my husband both have careers, not just jobs, and they make above minimum wage. Um, and we lived out of our Honda Pilot for 2 months just recently. It was a 2005 Honda Pilot. We paid cash. It had no working AC, and the transmission blew on that. And then we ended up getting a van that we paid 3 grand for, and it was probably only worth about a grand. No AC yet again.
Right.
And we were living out of that. So it is very bizarre because people say, well, why don't you apply for housing assistance? Why don't you apply for food stamps? We don't qualify. We make too much money.
Right.
Quite frankly, not enough to afford the cost of living anymore.
Right. So let's go back a little bit. When did this happen for you? Do you remember what year? And did you feel the switch as in, okay, I can live okay now, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, I can't afford housing? When was this switch?
So, my husband was in car sales for 5 or 6 years. We lived in Orlando, Florida. Um, let's see, 3 years ago now we moved here. So we lived in Orlando, Florida, and he was making almost six figures at this sales job with bonuses and all that stuff. He was doing great. He was one of the top salesmen at his dealership, and it was one of the biggest Subaru dealerships in the state. So we were comfortable. He bought me a new car. It was the first time I've ever had a new car. I mean, it was a Mitsubishi Mirage. I'm not flashy, but that was fun.
Yeah.
He had a Mustang. We had a nice 2 bedroom, granite countertops. Things were easy peasy. We weren't lavish, but we never were stressed about finance.
Right.
And we moved here a little bit before the pandemic, like maybe a year before. And then he took a severe pay cut. The dealerships just didn't pay what they used to. So we minimized, we shared a car.
Well, hold on one second. Let's talk about that. Why did the dealership change the way that they pay? Like, what changed with them?
Well, we moved from Orlando to St. Pete, and for whatever reason, the pay plans can vary drastically at dealerships. So they can pay a solid numerical amount per unit. That way, you're playing a numbers game of how many can I sell, or it can be commission based. But yeah, the dealerships here, for whatever reason, just did not pay like the dealership in Orlando.
Okay.
Know why? And yeah, he took a pay cut to move here.
Now, how big of a pay cut are we talking? So he was making six figures.
Talking about 90 to 100,000, and he went down to 50,000, if not less.
Okay, so 50% pay cut.
Really bad. And you're talking commissions. So when he's not selling cars, he's making $0.
Exactly. Okay.
So really bad. Not
Right.
very good at all. So we minimized. He lost the car. We were living in a house. We moved to a 1 bedroom condo, only $1,000 a month. Then that was in December, right before COVID hit. So that was fun because now the car industry is non-existent. There was a chip shortage. My job is I own an entertainment company, and I also am a freelance performer. I'm an aerialist. I'm a circus performer. I'm a dancer. And shockingly, it might sound silly, but you can make pretty decent money doing that, especially in Tampa and Florida in general. So during the lockdown, there was no events. There was no music festivals. So we were making no money. I was doing Uber Eats, side hustle. He was still trying to work at the dealership.
Let me ask you, Kyla, at this point, did you guys think maybe we should go back to the Orlando area where things were far more comfortable?
Yeah, so at that point, the ship had sailed because all the dealerships were tanking. He had called back to, he still stays in communication with some of his managers from back then, or family, friends of ours at this point. So he had called around, and he tried, a handful of different dealerships here from St. Pete to Clearwater. He tried selling windows. He tried doing solar. He was by no means stagnant in his career.
Right.
But you're also talking about someone who has a GED, and they're like, well, I'm good at sales, but there's nothing to sell right now.
Right. Okay. So
we felt very stuck.
Okay. So in terms of your ability to earn income, were you doing this for a company, or were you almost like a consultant being hired for gigs before COVID hit?
So before COVID, I have my own LLC. So I book out corporate events, weddings, music festivals, private events, and I hire stilt walkers, face painters, aerialists, fire spinners, any type of live talent. But I also freelance for a bunch of different performance companies, production companies.
Okay.
So
when COVID hit, that dried up. Yeah, definitely. So when COVID hit, that dried up, right?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
all the music festivals were canceled for that season. I lost thousands of dollars just with that one revenue. Weddings were being canceled. Everyone's weddings were postponed. I had to give back a lot of deposits. I mean, I guess I could have held on to them, but I didn't feel right doing that because I didn't know when we were going to be able to have their
Right.
events again.
Right. Okay. So you started to do Uber Eats, and did you do like Lyft and, Uber driving and all that too?
Uh, well, we didn't do any driving. Andrew was still working at the dealership and left, tried to do windows, whatever. He didn't feel safe with me driving people around by myself. I'm
Okay.
also not a very good driver. But
Okay.
but yeah, the food thing, but doing the food delivery stuff is pretty decent money.
Like, what are we talking in terms of nightly income?
You could make like $300 if you really wanted to.
Wow.
If you know
Okay.
how to if you know how to use the apps.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, for those of you that haven't done it, you want to stick to one singular location. Metropolitan is definitely better. Less miles, more deliveries. But I will say, with the price of gas right now, I don't know how people are still profiting, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. So when you noticed that that was not going well, what happened after that?
Uh, well, um, a lot of bills fell behind. A lot of things uh, did not get paid because our first priority was always paying our rent, always paying rent, maybe get an extension on the electricity bill.
And your rent was $1,000 a month at the time, right?
Yeah, only $1,000
Okay.
now. I mean, depending on where you live, you might say that's crazy, but I was paying $1,000 a month. Maybe I shouldn't say the area, but it was a very nice condo association on the bay. It had gyms, hot tub, fishing pier. I mean, really, we got a steal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I said it was trouble in paradise because we were living at this beautiful place, but every waking moment was, how are we going to pay all of this? My husband has 2 kids, he has child support. That's another thing people might not realize. I'm not a single individual that's just, a single gal paying for myself. I married someone with a commitment to their children. So yeah.
Yeah. So what were you guys thinking at that point? Like, bills are piling up, our income is lower than what our bills are. What are your options at this point?
We tried applying for assistance for food stamps. We did receive a little bit of help from his parents at the time. Unfortunately, the help that we got from them was always received with, a little bit of judgment and resentment again and again. So it just got to the point where I was like, I don't care what we have to do. I don't want to involve them anymore than I
Right.
have to.
Right.
Right.
Because it also takes a mental and emotional toll on your marriage. It takes a mental and emotional toll on your self-esteem. And having to ask people for help, at least for me, is always really difficult. But when that's met with judgment and self-righteousness, it makes it even harder. So it eventually, what ended up happening, we were keeping our head above water barely. Well, at the cost of our credit scores, right?
Right.
Right.
We always had enough to pay for keeping the lights on, keeping one car in our possession, and having rent, right? Everything else went out the window. So eventually what ended up happening, our landlord, a month or so before our lease was to be renewed, they said, we're selling, which I had a feeling it was coming because, towards the end of lockdown, everything just skyrocketed. So we knew, like, oh boy, we're screwed.
Yeah. So you thought, okay, this is going to be difficult to find another place to live, that our credit score's tanking, and we're looking for something $1,000 or less.
Yeah, so towards the end of our lease, my husband completely escaped the car industry, which I was so happy about, because you're working um, 6 days in a row, and then you have one day off, and then you work 7 days, and then you have it's the schedule's horrible if you've ever been in the industry. Um, and like if you divided that hourly, it's like what he was making in commission at the time was horrific. Um, so he eventually escaped. He ended up working at a call center. Essentially, it's a marketing firm for like lead generation. Not very exciting stuff, right? Um, but it was, he was making money again. It was open enrollment. They were doing medical stuff, whatever. So he was like, things are looking up. And then they sold the unit. So I was like, great, now what? So at least he had proof of income. So we were like, it'll be fine. We'll figure it out. Um, to really paint a picture for people that haven't tried to find a rental in the last year or haven't tried to find a rental in this area, I have a list, if you don't mind me reading it,
Sure.
of the requirements that are very often involved in rentals within St. Pete, Tampa Bay, really throughout Florida. So if you would like to rent a place anywhere near here, oftentimes they require 3 times the income. I've even seen some landlords or property managers want you to have proof of being at the same job for 6 months. First month's rent, last month's rent, a security deposit equal to 1 month's rent, if not more, depending on credit. A non-refundable application fee per adult. There's admin fees. Sometimes there's monthly fees for air filters or miscellaneous. There's pet deposits. There's pet rent. Credit score of 650 or higher. That's the one that really caused us a lot of trouble. And what I find odd about that, obviously they want to make sure people are going to pay their rent on time, but here's what's so frustrating. I don't remember paying rent a day in my life and it ever being reported to the credit bureau. When my credit was tanking during COVID, I paid my rent first and foremost. And that will never be considered or addressed when trying to find a rental.
You bring up a very good point, and I've heard this debate before, and it's not fair that those on-time payments don't get reported to it. But I'm wondering if it's because many landlords, I would say maybe most landlords, are either small companies or private individuals with no ability to report to the credit union. So, that you bring up a really good point. Everybody else hits your credit negatively, but when you want to focus on a roof over your head, you don't get the credit for it.
Yeah, it's definitely a flawed system. And
well, let me ask you, Kyla. So people that are probably watching this are thinking, did you guys have any family? Could you just move in with some family?
Yeah, that's a question that gets asked a lot. We'll go as deep as you want, but my mother is a bipolar alcoholic. Um, some days, some years she might not admit that, other times she will. Sometimes she's on medication, sometimes she's not. I haven't talked to her in probably 6 months, but I did use her DSW points a few months ago, and she did text me a few weeks ago incredibly upset that I used her DSW points, and I chose to not respond. I don't even know if she knows that I'm homeless, but for my own mental health and well-being, I just can't have that level of toxicity in my life. Not that I don't have empathy for mental health. I know that a lot of it isn't her fault, but it's a strained relationship. More interestingly, I really could write a novel on this, quite frankly. My husband's parents are pastors of a church in Sarasota. I won't say anything further, but as I mentioned earlier, when we asked for their help, it was met with a lot of judgment and, we're trying to pay double on our mortgage and, we're building this thing for the church. And like, even just it makes me physically ill. And regardless of anyone's religious beliefs, um, I just don't think that the way they're living is
Yeah.
in accordance to their religious beliefs, quite frankly.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with more. It sounds actually hypocritical. You're here, helping yourself and, trying to pay double on your mortgage while your son and his wife can't even afford a roof over their head.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just going to take a wild guess that conversation probably put a big strain on their relationship.
Yeah, there was many of those conversations, and he's currently not talking to his parents.
No surprise. I mean, honestly, would anybody? No surprise there. So I get it. So, okay. So you guys are in this conundrum here. No friends, no family to go to. And the landlord says, I'm selling, probably because it's the height of the market. So you guys are thinking, all right, let's try to apply for some assistance. They say you make too much. Yeah, which is another big issue that we could, literally spend a day on about how screwed up the system is to even qualify for help. They're literally force you to do nothing, to, not be a productive person of society. You're asking for help, not a permanent, check till you're 95 years old. So what do you guys do at that point?
Well, I had friends that are landlords. I have friends that are property managers. I have friends that are real estate investors. As much as people want to villainize these groups of people, I think it's dangerous to make generalizations, but they tried to help me and were basically like, yeah, you're screwed. And so I I had been so stressed out for so long, every month grinding my teeth, and my marriage was strained, making myself sick. And I always said, well, what's going to happen if we don't make it? What's going to happen if we can't make it this month? And I started thinking, well, what if we had to live in the car? Well, what if we were homeless? What would we do? And I started to subconsciously devise this plan over the span of the pandemic. And I never really voiced it with anyone because everyone would think I'm crazy. You do whatever you can to get into a rental, no matter what. And I was sick of living like this. I was sick of how cyclical it was. And I didn't want to go back to the way me and my mom lived and just being house broke. We were always house broke. Everything went to our living situation, and there was never anything left. And I was like, I'm sick of it. So I basically put together a presentation and sat my husband down on the couch, and I said, we're going to be homeless. Nobody will rent to us. So this is how we're going to do it. And at that point, I had totaled out my Mitsubishi Mirage. Luckily, I'd gotten a little bit of money for it, and we had bought that Honda Pilot in cash. And I said, this is how we're going to build it. We're going to put the back seats down. We're going to build a bed frame. We're going to. I made window curtains, and like a lot of my neighbors are so sweet and really chill, and they knew it was messed up. Some of them were getting screwed over too. Actually, one of my neighbors, it was an older couple, and one of the wives had just had heart surgery, and they said they gave us 60 days and we're out of here.
Nice.
They had nowhere to go.
Right. Yeah.
And they're older with health conditions. So, I mean, I look at my situation. I said, at least I'm young, I'm healthy, I can live out of an SUV and be fine.
So what was your plan, Kyla, on kind of feeding yourself and showers and stuff like that? Because sleeping, that was easy. That's good.
Oh, yeah, of course. So I said we get a gym membership. Luckily, I work at a gym, so like I can shower here and stuff. But I said we get a gym membership. We got a 24-hour membership, 24-hour access, shower, whatever. You can park at Walmart if you have to, but there is an undisclosed location that has 48-hour parking where we've parked at and had no issues because it's more like boating, camping. Nobody really thinks twice about it because a lot of different vehicles and boats are parked there overnight. So that hasn't been an issue for us. Although I think it takes a certain level of insanity, uh, maybe bravery, but I think mostly insanity on my part to do this.
So let me ask you, you guys could, is there a limit to park at Walmart, like a certain amount of days, or can you just perpetuity?
It's very convoluted. So it really just depends on who wants to mess with you and who doesn't. And guess what? Homeless people don't really have rights. Nobody really is advocating for them. So if law enforcement, I know you have a background in law enforcement, if law enforcement wants to hassle you, they'll hassle you. If, management at the location wants to hassle you, they'll hassle you. I mean, who are you going to call?
Right, understood. So in terms of food, were you guys able to go to any of kind of the soup kitchens?
We haven't done that. I feel weird going to like clothing banks, soup kitchens. Like a lot of the churches will do like food and clothing and toiletries. We're both currently working, and the insane part is that our careers are really taking off again. I'm doing events almost weekly. I also run the aerial program at a local gym. I have private lessons. I have weekly clients. Um, my husband, within 4 months of being at that marketing firm, got a promotion and is basically a project manager. So they
Wow.
gave him a raise. So we're able to afford food and gas, and I have a very large dog, so of pet care. And I don't want to take certain things away from people that I know need them.
Sure. So are you guys still living in the Honda Pilot?
So the Honda Pilot, it had almost 300,000 miles. I can't believe it made it as long as it did because it was our everyday driver as
Right.
well. So we kind of stay around St. Pete. My husband works in St. Pete. I have to go over the Gandhi for work. So I have a bit of a commute. The transmission went, and one of the mechanics that Andrew used to work with at the dealership, he's an angel. He worked on it and was like, listen, guys, just let it go. The amount of money you're going to put in it, just get a van. So we did get we, I'm on TikTok. So I ended up documenting this whole thing on there because I was like angry and frustrated, and the situation made me mad, but people's lack of understanding was even more.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, people don't get it. They're like, oh, you're homeless, so you must have a substance abuse problem. Oh, you're homeless, so you must not have a job. When it's so much deeper than that. So I started documenting it and showing people what things are really like currently. And I guess I got like a pretty large following pretty quickly. And I ended up doing a GoFundMe, and we used that money to get a Dodge Ram 2500 that was almost as old as I am.
Oh.
And that's what we currently have.
Oh my God. So it's a pickup truck?
It's like a van. It's like a Mark III, like one of those big chunky vans.
And
yeah, like a little wagon, like a
Was it-
little shaggin' wagon thing.
Is it already outfitted like with a bed, or did you guys have to do that?
It had the girl had laid down some laminate flooring, and it had like a little bed frame. It has a sink, but we didn't, we have to change the piping on it, but whatever. I don't really use the sink that much. But so yeah,
Okay.
sleep in that, hanging out in that.
Okay. So were you guys kind of are you parking in one place, or you guys kind of, what's your plan, to move around every couple days?
We typically park in one place, which there's pros and cons. Is it nice to know I have a place I can park at every night and not have to travel around? Yes. But I do fear that if you have certain habits, people that want to take note of that can take note of that, and you can become a target.
Yeah.
I am lucky to be doing this with my husband, and like I said, my large dog. I'm very rarely without my dog Gunner. And He's a really great alarm system. I don't know how he does it, but he won't bark at anything walking or driving by. It has to be a certain distance within the vehicle, and then he will alert us.
Wow. Okay,
So
so
I don't know how he knows.
right. Okay, so how long have you guys been living in a vehicle now?
Going on 3 months.
Three
Yeah.
months. Okay, what would you say your income is at this point?
Um, let's see. I mean, we're getting closer to maybe like eight 80,000 annually
Combined?
if you put our combined income.
Okay.
Okay.
So on paper, it sounds like a lot.
Okay, so that's what I was going to kind of get at. So if you're staying in your van, your expenses are probably gas, insurance, and food. What else am I missing?
Child support, cell phone bill that has me and his kids on it.
Okay.
Okay.
Um,
And then are you able to save enough money and bank it so that you guys can get out of this situation?
well, so the fun part about that is this van had quite a bit of issues. So, uh, fixing it wasn't that expensive. What gets expensive and eats away at your money when you're living like this is the rental cars and the hotels for when your van and home is in the shop.
Okay.
Okay.
So it started off good and we had a savings.
Mhm.
And then the Honda Pilot took a dump. This van is unwell. Right now, this van doesn't have a passenger seat belt, brake lights, or left turn signal. It was stalling, but we fixed that.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you're going to do this, there is potential to save money. There really is. But if you're doing it with a very old vehicle,
So what did you pay for this vehicle?
$3,000, which was about $2,000 too much.
Okay, so are you able to save more to potentially get like a camper, like a maybe a true RV?
So we received the opportunity of a lifetime, and I feel a very weird shame or guilt about it. So we were very public online. Because of all the car issues, Andrew would have to cut out of work early or take a day off. And, you know, with him having this promotion, I think there's a lot of room for growth within this company. It's a startup and they're doing very well. They've grown very quickly and they seem to really respect what he does there. I'm sorry to brag on him, but you know, it doesn't look good when you get a promotion and all of a sudden you're cutting out all the time. So
Right.
he had to go to his manager last week and he said, you know, I'm really sorry about what's going on. I I've been living out of my car with my wife basically. And she was like shocked and very upset. And she ended up telling one of the owners of the company. And he took Andrew aside and said, you know, we can't have our employees living like this. This is unacceptable. So, how much do you need? And Andrew was like, what? And he's like, what do you need? Do you want to get into an apartment? What do you and your wife need? And he explained like the credit situation, and the owner said, well, yeah, my credit's been messed up before too. I wouldn't be where I am if nobody helped me out.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up putting us in a extended stay for a week. That's where we are right now. And gave us essentially an interest-free loan.
Wow.
And we're looking at one van that like has AC and is set up more like van lifestyle, and then we're looking at one camper. So
wow, that's amazing.
be in something different this weekend.
That's amazing. So you guys are still looking for a van as opposed to getting an apartment?
Yeah, absolutely. We, Andrew said, of course, whatever help you want to give us, but he's like, rent's expensive. I don't see it getting any cheaper, and we want to fix our credit. If we're spending that much in rent every month, we're not going to have a savings. Like you said, what could you do with that extra money? If we're in a reliable van, not, you know, dealing with it breaking down every 5 minutes, we can save money. We can put that away. We're currently trying to pay off our debt. We have been able to chip away at some of our debt during this time, honestly. Um, so he said, I totally get it. I think that's a really smart idea. But he's like, what does your wife think? What is your wife? It's so funny. He's like, what about your wife? And he's like, hey, this was my wife's idea. Like, she had to convince me to live like this.
Well, and sorry to interrupt, but Kyla, like, it's amazing to me that, even before the pandemic, a lot of people started transitioning to more of a nomadic lifestyle, living in RVs, traveling, working remote. And this is more desirable because you have the freedom and you don't have, a lot of people would look at it, well, like, wow, there's no stability there. But there actually is, because your home is on wheels and you are not burdened to anyone.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, some people would rather live in an apartment and, be comfortable, whatever. But I will own this van at the end of it. The average rent in St. Pete, excuse me if my numbers are off, is like about 1,500 a month, right? That's a little over 18, like that's around 18,000 for the year, not including any other bills. That's almost 20 grand a year to
Wow.
to never own anything.
Right.
What could a regular resident here do with an extra 20,000 a year? Could you pay off your student loans?
Excuse me. Yeah, agreed. So the vans that you're looking at, are they more RV style, or are they what you were in before?
One we're looking at is more like a RV Winnebago type deal, a little bit smaller. And then the other one is like a van that's just been like rebuilt to live in.
So you guys are probably pretty used to now living in close, tight quarters. It probably doesn't bother you, but now if you go with the RV, what are we looking at cost-wise on that and your monthly payments to pay that back?
I mean, I think the RV is around 2,400. It's a little over budget.
Oh, that's it? I thought you were going to say 24,000.
I mean, sorry, 24,000.
Oh, okay. No, okay, 24,000. What would your payments be on that to the guy that's lending it?
I mean, I don't know how much I'm really allowed to say on here, but I mean, they were just going to
just ballpark 500, 1,000 a month. What are we talking?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they're gonna.
Okay.
I don't know how they're gonna break it up for us. I mean.
Okay. So at the end, what I'm seeing on this is you're paying, say, a set amount on this. You're going to have a more, I'm assuming, a refrigerator, a way to cook food, a more comfortable way of living. You're going to be able to save some money so that you can not only get out of debt, repair your credit, but you could eventually, if you do this correctly, become financially free.
Yep. Yeah. Not be without debt. I mean, yeah, like you said, I mean, what you're getting at is, what would the monthly payment be versus rent? Absolutely lower.
Right.
I don't know how they're gonna, slice the pizza, but it's just automatically coming out of Andrew's check, and there's no interest. We're not financing through a lender. It's like, I guess if you had normal, stable parents that were financially willing, it would just be like them.
Yes.
Hey, here, get into something and just pay me back.
Right.
Which I know is insane. A lot of people don't have that, but.
No, I agree. And what I think is really amazing, Kyla, is that you guys are being given this gift, but instead of basically saying, get us in an apartment so we can continue to run the hamster wheel and spend $20,000 a year and get nothing for it other than four walls and a roof, you're getting that with an RV that gives you the ability to be mobile, flexible, and save more money. So I think that's really compelling in this story because it's not like you're trying to move into the penthouse.
No. No, that's we're not used to receiving help, obviously, from the small amount we've told you about our parents. That people being kind and loving to us is very abstract. But I'm not trying to take the money and run. And I don't know why. It really, some of the online comments are very upset about what we're doing, and they think it's heinous that we wouldn't get into an apartment with it. And I'm not an economist. I was actually always very bad at math, and I'm like, hey, it just seems really stupid to let this person lend me money that I'm now paying them back, but then paying this every.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, you're never going to get ahead that way. I think what you're doing is really smart because it's going to enable you to potentially come financially free. You'll have no debt, you'll have plenty of savings, and then you guys can really kind of be free and pick and choose what you want to do. I think what you're doing is very smart.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, some people see it that way. That's the goal. I mean, we lived with financial strife for so long, and something snapped, and I just said, let's figure it out. But if anyone's wanting to do this, obviously, if you're in an emergency style situation, you might have to get the crappy van that has a lot of issues, and that could financially drain you. That's something to think about. But if you're able to go with what is mechanically reliable. If you're like, we're about to be kicked out next week, because I get this all the time. They're selling the unit. We don't have anywhere to go. Whatever money you have left, if you're trying to do this, go with what is mechanically sound and throw a memory foam back there, sleep in a sleeping bag, do what you have to do. Because as long as the vehicle is mechanically sound and you have some stream of income, it's a lot easier to see light at the end of the tunnel and get ahead.
Okay. What do you recommend on the food situation? Like, you don't have the ability to cook. So what's the most economical way to do that part?
Oh, please do not go to Wawa every week like I have done.
Yeah.
So get a little folding table, get a Coleman's camp stove with the butane canisters, get a little skillet, a pot, a pan, get like a little storage container. If you can slide that in the vehicle, put it on the roof rack, whatever you got to do. And get some mac and cheese, make some beanie weenies if you have to. I mean, this isn't van life luxury. This isn't about comfortability. It sucks.
It's about survival.
It's going to suck.
Yeah.
It sucks to be poor. And I'm on paper not poor, but I am poor. So it's like, I don't know. So yeah, it's not going to be comfortable. I'm showing a side of van life that is not about the whimsy and the sunsets. This is about I don't want to live on the street, and I don't want to give my last dollar to an apartment complex again.
Yeah, 100%. So that's great advice for people that are kind of facing the same situation as you. If they want to learn more about your situation and, maybe DM you or anything, what's your socials that they can contact you on?
My screen name on Instagram and TikTok is Alrighty Then with 6 eyes.
Oh boy. We'll put that below.
Ace Ventura. Yeah, just put the link. It's a really stupid screen name, and I semi regret it. I should have put something easier, but whatever.
Okay, and that's on Instagram, you said?
Instagram and TikTok.
Anywhere else? Do you have a YouTube channel?
I have one and I would like to start posting on there for sure.
Yeah,
So I want
that would be
to get some
awesome.
more long form content.
Yeah. So, I think the biggest thing that our listeners learn from this is it's homeless people aren't stereotypical drug addicts or mentally ill like everybody thinks. You can be college educated and, just not able to afford the massive increasing inflation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely think twice, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next time you the next time you see someone asking for money or the next time you see someone on the side of the street, it could very easily be you. It takes losing your job, it takes one medical emergency. So I think my main message is to lead with empathy and try to have understanding of people's situation.
Kyla, you have been amazing. Thank you for sharing your story. I think I have learned a ton. I know other people have too. People do not pass judgment on homeless people because you don't know the situation. So thanks again for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode with Kyla. I was absolutely enlightened. A college educated person that can't even afford the rising inflation and high rents in our country. I'm a landlord, I'm an investor, I see it. Our rental rates have to keep up with the pace of our mortgages and our other bills. I totally get it. What's really shocking is that she has had the fortitude to not only not revert back to paying high prices and just throwing money away to rents, she's actually trying to make and save some money by continuing the van lifestyle. And she's also able to help other people that are maybe going through this too. The way I was brought up is that you get a job, you stay there for 30 years, hopefully you'll buy a house and eventually pay off your mortgage so that when you're old, you don't have to worry about anything. Things are very, very different now. Maybe this generation doesn't want to own anything. Maybe they shouldn't. Maybe our work has become mostly remote and that we can all live in a nomadic lifestyle and enjoy the world around us. It's a lot to be thankful for. But the most important thing that I learned is everyone tends to have some type of judgment or preconception about homeless people. Next time, I'll think twice before I think that the person is a drug addict or just really not contributing to society. So thank you, Kyla, for teaching me something, and I hope you guys learned something as well. Have a great day.